and welcome to Coffee with Jesus. I'm your host, Todd Uebele. In this episode, I am joined with Elizabeth Bristol. Those of you who've been listening for a while may remember that her and Christine Hobbs guest hosted for 2 episodes towards the end of our third season. She is the author of Marry Me, which is an excellent book, and I will post a link to the book on Amazon and Audible in the show notes and the episode description. We'll be discussing in this episode how both of us have recently lost parents and how we can use that to help not only help others, but to help helpers as well. So, Elizabeth, if you would, why don't you just go ahead and start by sharing what happened with your parents earlier this year?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You and I had planned this, I don't know, a week or two ago, and I woke up this morning and my best friend's mom died. And it just put me right back in that place, because in this past year, I lost my mom last May, and then I just lost my dad in June. And so I found myself really, of course, your best friend, you want to help her, and she's in Texas and I'm on Cape Cod. So it put me again in the perfect frame today for our conversation. I just thought there was God again offering us a space to take what we're going through and help other people with it. And so as I grieved her loss and thought about my friend, it made me think about our chat today and how caregiving, yeah, like 3 keys that you need to care for yourself while caregiving is what kind of came to mind.
That's good because we do try to help people based on what we've been through, but sometimes even the helpers need that help.
Yeah, especially in this place when I was there, because it was 4.5 years that I have been on with my dad, and he was 24/7 care after an accident, and he stayed at home. And my mom was a different case where she went into a facility. But, either case, there's still so much you have to do as the child to help the helpers too, And so, yeah, it just has been intense this whole time. And exactly, sometimes I've definitely felt like I needed more help than I had. Yeah, so it was really hitting me that we are not alone, Todd, right? Because there's lots of people who have been through this, there's lots of people who are going through this, and there's people who will go through this. And so I felt like we understand that frustration, we understand that exhaustion, and all those crazy emotions that you have, those things that you can't really say to anybody else sometimes. And so I just thought the details are unique for each one of us. But every single one of these assignments, Todd, is Father filtered, right? God
Right.
knows exactly what's on each person's plate, right? He didn't put it there to punish us, and he's right alongside us and he'll never leave us. And one of the things I really love about him is, again, you can just ask him anything and he'll tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know, right? So in the middle of those caregiving things, when you're at the end of your rope, he's right there to give you the best ideas possible, to remind you how much he loves you more than anyone else. And I just see more than anything, once again, how he uses each situation for good. Yeah, he's so good. So my number one key when someone is caring for others is they need to care for themselves by staying as close as they can to Jesus, right?
Oh,
Just
right.
crying
Absolutely.
crying out to him every single time you need it, giving him your frustration, your aggravation, and just remember that scripture that he says, right? Give all your anxieties to me because I care for you. And I'm not saying I always did that. But, over and over, I learned that when I did, it was well worth it, right? Because you just went through the same thing as well,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And the thing is, there's nothing that's too big and there's nothing that's too small.
Yeah.
And it's a little funny because I done an episode a couple of years ago called Rain or Rockets, God is There.
Yes.
And basically I talked about how God protected me when I was in Afghanistan from some pretty hairy stuff.
Wow.
But also one day I was sitting at work and I literally prayed and asked God to stop the rain so that while I walked my car I wouldn't get soaked, and he did, and I felt bad even asking for something that's so small, but there was that still small voice in the back of my head, you know, what, do you think God can't do this? And
Yes.
do you think you're not important enough? And we are important to God. We are his children, and he will help us through everything. Um, and after that episode, sometime later, one of my friends asked me, so have you ever gotten wet walking to your car? And I said, well, yes, actually, I have. And I think it also illustrates that sometimes God will stop the rain. He will protect us from those
He
storms.
totally
But
did that for
sometimes
yes, I know.
sometimes God lets us get wet. But
Absolutely.
even then,
Yeah,
He's with us.
absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes in the middle of caregiving, right? How many times do you hear people saying, I don't have time to spend with him? And not even just caregiving, right? Often, lots of different reasons. And
Right.
what I learned in that situation is, he's a redeemer, right? So whenever we take a break with God, he will help us get everything done that he has for us to do that day, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes it does feel like he shortens time or does something miraculous in that way where I get more done than I think I can. And sometimes, kind of like you said, his will is just a little bit different than ours. Maybe he takes a few things off my to-do list. And again, I felt like, again, in this crazy world right now, it's super important for us to know exactly and only the assignments he has for us, right? We don't even want to try and squish other things in.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's scary because I literally just went through that. Um,
Yes,
so my co-host and I were planning a really big 100th episode. Um,
yes.
Coffee with Jesus just had its 100th episode, and we were planning this really big to do. And I was trying to work it out. And the first date we planned, I couldn't do it. And then I tried to come up with a second date, and I tried to get people together, and it just was not working out. And I was praying about it, and um, over the weekend, and it was the same weekend where Donald Trump, where they had the assassination attempt. There was a
Yeah.
massive attack in Ukraine by Russia, and another um, escalation in the Middle East between Israel and Hezbollah. And just these three really big, really scary events all happening at the same time.
Mhm.
And so as I was praying about this 100th episode, again, that still small voice, God was
Yeah.
telling me, he said, you need to do this short episode to tell people that I'm still in control,
Yes.
you know? And
Yeah.
so rather than this really big to-do celebration that we had planned, it was just a really short kind of bonus episode just to let people know that God is in control.
Job, Todd. Good job for listening. Because don't we plow through sometimes and want to do exactly what we want to do
Yeah.
instead?
Yeah. Well, so it was just when you said, sometimes God will take things off our plate and sometimes he puts things on our plate. I'm like, okay, God didn't
Yes,
necessarily want us to do that really big deal because that's not what people needed. People
right,
needed to hear that God was in control during the scary times. And so
right.
that just cut right to the right to my heart because I'm like, that is exactly what just happened.
Yes, yes. And this is weird too, but I feel like before, I don't know about you, but I'd be in a Bible study and one of my friends would be having a hard time and we'd all jump into her aid, right? Everyone would be able to help. But these days, in these times that we're going through, it seems like many of us are in crisis at the same time, right? And it's not that we don't want to help, but we need to be prayerful again to know exactly and only the assignments God has for us. Because what happened to me in the caregiving is I just got really exhausted all the
Mhm.
time. And I don't even know what that was. I don't know if it's aging. I did end up with a brain tumor and I had brain surgery that could have something to do with it. But again, we don't want to run out of steam before we've done what we really do need to do, what he does have for us. So I just feel like I don't know, like you did, right? Is just praying to hear exactly and only what to do. That's how your listeners can protect themselves against burnout because caregiver burnout is a real thing. But we can ask God to take things off our to-do list,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had mentioned to you earlier how 2024 has been a very crazy year for me. I've been through a lot, and um, I kind
Mm.
of in the podcast I kind of made things kind of real time. I kind of talked about things as I was going through them, so people could see God working, real time. Like I couldn't do the podcast as often. We tried to do a bi-weekly schedule, and at first I was just like, God, I just got to stop. I got to put it on hold. I got to go on hiatus. And God said, no. He said, you need to talk about what you're doing.
Mhm,
But if you need to push back an episode, that's okay. Like God allowed me to do maybe every 3 weeks instead of every 2 weeks.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
there were a bunch of episodes where instead of every second week, it was every third week that we released. So the load was lightened enough where I was still doing what God called me to do,
Yes,
but I could still do it even with everything else that was going on in my life.
yes, yes, because seriously, what they say on the plane all the time, right? Put your own oxygen mask on first is really key in this whole thing. And there's some of those super basic things that we just really need to have time to do. Really simple things sometimes that staying hydrated, and not only sleep, but we need rest, right? And so for me, if I don't do this, this sounds stupid, but I'll put on a movie at night, even if I don't watch the whole thing, just so when I lay down to sleep, I can think about the movie instead of all my challenges,
Yeah.
because again, just finding little tricks like that, I think, to help because sometimes you're just, I've been up all night and I'm like, I'm so exhausted. What am I doing awake all night? You know? So all those things they tell you, the exercise and of course getting I felt like we were taking my dad for every single appointment we could. He was having mole checks and I hadn't been to the doctors in 5 years for anything. So I was surprised, when I found out about that tumor. And it's just super important because under all the stress that really does come with caregiving, we need attention. And God is not a taskmaster, like he did for you. He will let us adjust the schedule to take care of ourselves as well. Like I think, my friend struggles with guilt and feeling like that if she did anything for herself, she was like doing something wrong. And it's like, no, 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 no. We need that oxygen mask on herself. And I think he's our oxygen mask,
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And yeah, it's important to take care of ourselves first. And I
Yeah.
love your idea of just having the TV on the background to distract your brain. Because I know there's been so many times where I'm laying in bed and my brain just races with everything that's going on around me, and
Yeah.
it'll take me 2 hours to fall asleep. Because
Yes.
I can't seem to calm it down, and I think kind of distracting yourself in a way is really good. Because you're absolutely right. We need that rest.
And even sometimes I was doing that. I wasn't doing what I'm telling everybody to do. I was laying there like you said, and all those things were going through my mind. So, I was thinking, oh, if I can just then use the time to resolve these challenges and figure out what to do, it won't be wasted time. But the Lord was like, don't think about these in those midnight hours. Save them for the prayer chair. And sure enough, you know how sometimes you're laying there and you're stewing on these things and no answer is coming, not when you're exhausted like that. Where if you take them to your prayer chair in the morning with him, it is amazing how quickly, I don't know, those God ideas can come. So I feel like,
Yeah.
again, um, not to forget. And another key, another one I really love is those Jesus with skin on friends around us. If I did not have my Bible study, we'd meet on Tuesday mornings at Panera, and those guys were my sanity in going through this caregiving thing. And so I recognize too, like some people, like my friend who just lost her mom today, is more introverted and maybe more focused on her family. So maybe not likely to do something like meet at Panera, but again, I think things like this podcast and the other ones that you've got planned for this season, and these kind of things are, again, just places to feed the soul of these caregivers that need those break times to be encouraged and to be reminded that Jesus is always with us. And so however that looks for each person, just the people around them, the fellow Christian, or the church body, to just come along and be a part of that, even if it's lurking on a social media.
No, it is important to be with your brothers and sisters, and this is something I'm relearning. Um, and I've talked about on here before how, my family and I stopped going to church for several years. Just recently we've started going back, and another funny story, when we had this move looming over our heads, I was
Mm-hmm,
praying and I said, God, if you can
mm-hmm.
just push back this move for me a few months, I will go to church every week.
And he
And
did
he
it,
did.
didn't
He did.
he?
So I'm like, all right, now I'm going to church every week. And
Again, good that you kept your promise.
yeah, yeah, but the real important part there is, I'm now surrounded with my brothers and sisters, and I'm still meeting people. I'm still really
Yeah.
kind of forming those relationships.
Mhm.
But I'm at a place now where I'm confident that if I really needed help with something, if something major were to go down now, I now have somebody I can reach out to.
Amazing.
I don't have to go it alone. And that was a big part of my issues this past year, was I had to go it alone because I wasn't being faithful in attending a church or a Bible study or anything.
Right?
Um, and now that I am, and again, even though that these relationships are still really new and still forming, I know that there are people I could go to if I really needed help.
Yeah. And that's huge. That's huge. And one of the things I like about that is, I worked at a church one time and I was in the caregiving. It was what was it called? Community care we did. And we formed 6 different teams to help people. And I remember personally, I'd feel overwhelmed sometimes. Someone would come in and they would need so much help in so many directions. And it was such a blessing to partner together in the body of Christ and to have these teams together. So it wasn't, of course, again, of course, it wasn't all up to me. It was all up to God. And he used us all together as a team, which made it fun helping these people rather than overwhelming and, having to take it all on ourselves. And
Right.
so that's my key that turned up. I was only doing 3 keys, but the key I forgot that maybe is most important, and it's a fun one to finish up on, is, how did I forget this key? I don't know. Like Christine and I both were like, we need fun. And you need fun too, Todd. We all need fun.
Yep.
Right? And so I just was thinking of that again, when you're caregiving, doesn't it always seem like I don't have time to plan something fun. You know what I mean? You've got all the have to do's on the list and you're just exhausted by the time it's over. So you don't even care that you're not having fun. But even those simple little things, maybe it's taking a bath, maybe it's floating in the pool, someone's pool, or just those things that can put a really big smile on your face. It's really imperative, I think. And the funny thing about it, or I don't know, I just didn't expect it, is I would look forward to these things, so I might look forward to something for 3 weeks. I'd make the plan to go out and do the thing, and then you'd live on it for a while. Christine and I got into chicken and waffles. Have you ever had that? Oh my
No.
word. You got to. So we just went again. We kept talking, we got to do chicken and waffles. And sure enough, we knew both of our parents were coming to an end. And her mom died exactly a week before mine. And I spoke at her mom's funeral, and then we had my dad's funeral. And once everything was, done, we got back to the restaurant there for another set of chicken and waffles. And thank God they had it on the menu, because last year we went and they didn't. So yeah, just, you need even a few simple experiences can take you a lot farther than you ever thought possible. So I like to encourage people to have those on their calendar too, and caring for yourself. That is something we need to do, I think.
Yeah, and like you said, it can be something simple. It can be, chicken and waffles, or recently I've been watching, and my wife, she kind of teases me a little bit, but she also said she finds it comforting that I do this.
Mm.
Family Ties is a sitcom from the 80s. I loved it as a kid. It's now on streaming, and so I've just been watching Family Ties. It's just, an episode's what, 20 minutes or so. Takes my mind away for a little bit, and I can just kind of relax for a little bit. And it seems simple, it seems small, it may seem silly,
No.
but
Mm,
it
nope.
helps me. It's something that is fun for me and something that will help me relax.
Right? And again, as you fall asleep that night and think of the goofy thing they did or their challenge, that seems a whole lot easier to figure out than the one you're going through.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah. I just signed on with a group called the Dream Team. And my pastor is Patricia King, and she's written over like 100 books, and she partners with Brian Simmons, I think his name is, and he's the one who wrote the Passion Bible. And so they work together because they like to help people who feel called to write, and they have a whole team of people that pray for you and prophesy and really just help you get it launched. And so I am going to start working with them in September. And they say that within 6 to 8 months, we will have the book ready to go. So I'm getting ready to write about my caregiving experiences with my dad. And as a little assignment, I've got the back cover of the book together, and I didn't know if you wanted me to share it.
Yeah, that's I think that's a great way to close out the episode. Why don't you go ahead and do that for us?
Okay. A dutiful daughter, a dying parent. Would she find forgiveness and healing in the time they had left? Elizabeth Bristol wasn't expecting to go back home, but after learning that her aging, odd, accident-prone father was found outside with frostbitten toes and broken ribs, the newly published author packed up her car and her dog and returned to the place where she had fled. And though frustrated about putting everything in her life on hold, she spent Sundays through Tuesdays wiping his bum, dealing with family dynamics, and confronting decades of daddy issues. After a breast cancer scare, the pandemic lockdown, and then brain surgery to remove a tumor, Elizabeth wrestled with nursing a parent who could be difficult, larger than life, and hilariously bizarre. But while days of uncertainty stretched into years of helping him make his final mark on the world, she discovered a love for him that she never knew possible. Would they both find redemption in their relationship? In a raw and thought-provoking account, Elizabeth Bristol shares the heartbreaking but sometimes funny adventure of being a caregiver for elderly parents. Holding nothing back, she reveals the personal and universal lessons learned from this rare and bittersweet gift. Mondays with Dad is my tentative title for the next compelling installment of the Slice of Life series. If you like relatable themes, story with long-lasting impact, and quick reads, then you'll adore Elizabeth Bristol's authentic journey.
Well, now you have to write it and publish it.
Yeah, no, I do.
I listened to your book, Marry Me, and that was just
Mm,
a
thank
phenomenal
you.
book. I loved it. I listened to it twice actually, and I'm probably
Oh,
going to listen to it a third time. It was an outstanding book, and I'm very much looking forward to this new one that you're going to be writing. So please keep me posted. I'd love to get a copy of that too when it's ready.
of course. Yes, thank you.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking the time and for joining us again. It was great to have you back in the show. I hope we can do this again in the future.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and may God bless each and every one of you.